Hi, and welcome to Artcasters number 11113. I'm your host, Joshua Kemble, hosting as a co-host with Scott the Awesome Serkland.
How y'all doing today? I don't think we can keep this thing going the whole time.
Might be the third guy who just laughs the whole show. Is that...
Yeah. It's like you just gotta hit the the fart noises and the slide whistle. All right, so this isn't a morning zoo show. This is Artcasters. This is the weekly show that that Scott Serkland and I do. It alternates between our two channels, and today's special guest, we have a rotating third chair, and today's is Cory Kerr.
How's it going?
And so let's start it off. Scott, where can we find your work?
You can find me at circworks.com, Circworks on YouTube, pretty much Circworks anywhere. So, oh yeah, right. And it's right down here if you need to find me.
All right, and then Cory, where can we find your work?
You can find me at corykerr.com, and that has links to my YouTube and Twitter and Instagram, which is where I spend most of my time. And it should also be down at the bottom here, except it might be reversed. I'm not sure if I did that right or not.
No, it's nice. It's good.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so it's down there.
Yeah, that's actually a very lovely thing, and I was just talking to Scott about it. Like, I'm gonna set one of those up myself. I've never done it before, so it'll be a learning experience.
The lower third.
Yeah, but that looks classy, man. All right, so it's 2018. Since this is kind of like the first show of 2018, we thought it'd be kind of fun to kind of go over and just troubleshoot what our plans are kind of as artists. Like, what are our goals? What are we kind of thinking we want to achieve in the year? And I'd almost be like saying it's our 2018 resolutions, but I think probably across the board, I don't know if any of us are really resolution people.
I guess it depends how you define a resolution. I mean, if your resolution is just a goal, but then there's actually steps involved to reach that goal. But usually resolutions are just kind of, I'm going to do this, and there's really no plan behind it.
Yeah. And I also feel like resolutions, because of that, can also be setting yourself up for disappointment as well as other people. So you can be like, I'm going to lose 50 pounds this year or whatever. And then there's no mapped out way to get there.
Most people's resolutions are just a wish. Like they don't plan anything. They're just like, I wish this would happen. And then nothing happens with it. And so it's not a goal.
So in that case, my resolution's to just become incredibly good looking and have $1 million. That's what I'm going to aim for by the end of the year for my resolution. But hopefully this I was going to say podcast, but this vlog, or actually it's just a show. A show.
Hangout. What do we call it? Just a live chat, hangout, whatever.
Yeah. So anyhow, this thing that we do every week, hopefully we will just be talking about like actual plans and stuff. So I don't know. I know for me, there's some things that I kind of started like mid-year last year that I kind of want to continue. I don't know. Like I kind of want to hear some of your guys' first though. So I don't know. What do you think, Scott? Like, what's one of your kind of first goals or first ideas or some of the, like just one thing? Should we just do one at a time? I don't know.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, the first thing, and I usually, I did a video last year around this time where I kind of showed how I lay everything out in Trello, which I've still kind of got that board. And I just did a video. The video I posted on Monday was kind of talking about my goals. So I made spreading some things, but the main thing I'm going to do before I actually go in and start setting all the, actually setting my goals and everything for Trello is try to is basically try to finish up the main thing that I didn't get done last year, which is the comic book. So that's actually what I'm working on now. If I can go ahead and screen share. I've got right now I'm coloring in some or laying the flats and everything in some of these pages, but yeah, I want to finish the comic. That's kind of the main thing. So after that, then I think I'm going to actually sit down and really sort of plan out the rest of the year. But for me, you know, and I mean, I think it's a good time when the year starts to start thinking about this stuff, but it doesn't really, I mean, it can be more arbitrary than that. You know, I mean, you can start your goals at any time, but yeah, I mean, the main thing right now is just the comic book, and I've got, you know, everything else is kind of just continuing what I've been doing. I don't think I'm setting anything like brand new, like things that I haven't done before, but just improving on, because I think last year I started to do some things that probably, you know, if you were like gonna set goals every year at a certain date, I think I kind of started some of those goals early, like with the digital products, because that wasn't anything I planned in the beginning of the year. So, and that's kind of, I guess what I'm getting at too, is that you can kind of change along the way, you know, shuffle around some of your plans and everything. So I'm going to continue on creating the digital products and try to get that going, the different passive income streams that I have, try to, you know, most of all these elements are sort of in place now. I got another store. I've got, you know, so I've got all this stuff. I think one of the things I want to focus on is advertising, so people know about this stuff. Because I don't know if it makes sense to build an all new store, you know, or get involved in a whole other endeavor when I still haven't, you know, I guess fully realized the other stuff that I've done.
Yeah, that's actually, no, that makes a lot of sense. So I'm sorry. So what is the goal with your comic, and let like for anybody, the 5 people who are subscribed to me that don't know who you are, okay. Let them know what the comic is too.
Yeah. So my comic book, it's kind of a kids versus zombie story. It's called Young and the Dead. It's like Goonies meets Night of the Living Dead. So it's basically, you know, if you were 11 years old and living in the 1980s and there was a zombie apocalypse, this is kind of that story. And it's loosely based on, you know, some of the characters are based on friends of mine. The names have all been changed and everything like that. It's basically my, you know, kind of my Mary Sue if I was a kid and I was, you know, if I was in a zombie apocalypse. But it's not really me. The characters are, you know. But anyway, so that's kind of the story. I've got 3 issues already. I'm working on the 4th issue, and so it'll probably go 5 or 6 issues. And it takes a long time to do, you know. It's just kind of one of these passion projects that whenever I have time to work on, I will. I mean, when I first started off, my main thing that I did last year, and I mean, last episode, I know you weren't here, Josh, but we kind of went over what we accomplished last year in 2017. And one of the major things that I did was the 100 Days of Making Comics Challenge. So I made good progress from the comic book throughout those 100 days, but it wasn't, you know, the comic book wasn't done at the end of those days, and nor does it need to be. I mean, that's not really a stipulation on the 100 days. It's not necessarily you have to make a comic in that amount of time, but just that you put in at least your 30 minutes. So, and then going after that, I continued, for the most part, I continued to try to put in 30 minutes a day. And then there were times where, you know, things got busy or whatever, and I didn't get it done. But, you know, so essentially I've got 3 more pages to pencil and ink. I've got a shade, you know, flat and shade all these, and then do the lettering and everything. So, I mean, that's the main thing right now, because I'm behind on it, I guess, you know.
And are you planning to finish a specific number of pages or issues, or totally close out the story?
Oh, this is just for issue 4, and then after that's done, then I gotta start thinking about issue 5. So, yeah, and it's a weird thing because I talk about it a lot, especially when I'm doing the 100 Days of Making Comics, but I try not to push it too hard, because it's, you know, people are used to traditionally the way you get comics where they come out every month. That's just not even, you know, it takes me like a year to make one of these, just because it doesn't. If I can make it pay the bills, then I can put them out more often. But it's just, you know, like I said, it's kind of a, it's a passion project, but it's sort of in the background, and I get to it when I can, because I do other stuff that, you know, that kind of pays the bills and stuff. So, so yeah, I guess my point is that, I don't really want to promote it too much until the whole story's done, but it's, you know, that could be a couple years, 2 or 3 years away, possibly more, you know, at the rate I'm going. So, but, you know, once it's all complete, and I do promote when I get each issue done, I'll do a Kickstarter and everything, just because it's a little milestone. But my main goal is to finish the whole story and then collect it, and then really, really, you know, push everything. But because I just don't want anyone to get, I mean, certain people that, you know, follow me and everything, I think if they know me well enough, they know, you know, that I'm always kind of working on it, but it takes longer. But for the uninitiated, I just don't want people like, oh, when's the next issue going to be out and everything, and, you know, so I don't promote it too hard. So, but yeah, this right now I'm just working on the issue 4 right now. So.
Nice. So you think you'll be done then with issue 4 by the end of the year, probably, right?
Oh yeah. Oh no, yeah. I'm early this year. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, if it takes me another year, then that's a problem. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it sounds like you're super close. And another thing to like consider too, for anybody who's like kind of thinking of this in terms of like a mainstream comic artist who's publishing every single month, a lot of those people are in teams.
Yeah, sure.
You know, and a lot of them aren't writing, lettering, inking, and drawing and coloring their entire comic. You know, so that's a whole different can of worms. You know, where you're talking about creator owned and you're doing everything. Now, there's still guys who have like crazy output, but you know,
like the person speaking right now. Like I watch, I mean, if you look at the work you put into yours and all the detail and everything, and how much you're putting out, yeah, I would put you in that category.
I don't know. I mean, like, you know, I think you're there too, man, because like you're on, you know, issue 4. That's huge.
Yeah, but I don't even want to admit to how long I've been working on this comic.
Yeah. I think that's going to be a pretty common thing you find from most cartoonists, you know. Like I think once you have that book out, it's like you almost don't want to think about the amount of time you spent on it.
Oh yeah.
You know. Cory, okay, so like what's a big goal for you? What do you think for just a starting goal for the year?
So I don't really do goals. Josh and I have talked about this, but kind of an existentialist, and so I kind of feel like goal setting is setting myself up for, I don't know, future worry and problems or whatever. So I kind of just try to become someone who is productive, if that makes sense. And I guess this is probably just a mindset thing. This is a roundabout way of saying that, but I commit to spend like a certain amount of time working focused on a particular project. And so I've got 2 of those right now. One is, if you've followed me at all, you know that I'm working on a children's book. And so I'm doing a children's book on a Japanese fairy tale, and that actually got picked up into this creative incubator, ArtLink 212. So I applied to that, and they picked me up on that. And so that's actually going to start in February. And so I said, you know, if I do one thing for too long, I kind of burn out on it. And so I try to like mix it up a little bit. And so I thought, you know, I had a really good time with the 100 Days of Animation, which is a variation on Kevin Cross's 100 Days of Making Comics. And that was really awesome. I gained a lot out of it. But about day 75 to 80, I just wanted to kill everyone. It was brutal. It was brutal. And so I thought, I wonder if I just did like a shorter thing. And so I came up with this thing, Sticker Stint. So I'm on day 4. This is day 4. I'm going to do 30 stickers in 30 days. And actually, as I started talking about this about a month ago, several people, I don't know, 6 to 8 people, kind of jumped in on various platforms, and they're like, dude, I love that. I'm going to do that with you. And so it's starting to kind of grow some legs, which is kind of fun.
I thought about doing it myself, and then I had to like take a step back and say, yeah, you can't do that. You got to focus on this other stuff. But it did sound like a lot of fun.
I would love to see what you come up with. I think that would be super cool.
Well, I've got stickers, but
yeah. Well, and the cool thing about it is I looked at my Instagram, and I was like, I try to do this every once in a while, where I'll look at, if somebody's coming to me for the first time and they don't know anything about me, like based on what they see here, what are they going to assume? And I had a bunch of partially finished work. Like it was all like, partial pages and work in progress stuff and thumbnails and things like that. And I just thought this is not indicative of like finished pieces. And so one of the reasons I'm doing this is I just want to kind of flood my social media with some kind of quick finished pieces and get a lot of the ideas out that I've had kind of floating around in my head. That doing like a full illustration, it might take me a few days to a week, depending on how detailed it is. But doing something like this, it's like I can get the idea out really fast and move on. And so I'm doing it kind of as a palette cleanser. And it sort of lines up with that art link thing and my children's book. So I'll finish that 30 days, hopefully with momentum rather than burnout, because I felt like I kind of burned out on the 100 days of animation. It took me like kind of a few days to a week to kind of get back into the swing of things. Like I felt like it kind of rested after that a little bit. And so I'm hoping that this one kind of amps me up and isn't too long to where it's going to like wear me out. Cause you can pretty much do anything for 30 days. Like 30 days isn't that long. So there's that. And then I've just got to finish that story. So it's written and it is, it's mostly thumbnailed out. There's a few pages that I have to kind of do some layouts on still. And a significant portion of it is inked, which is about probably half of the pages are inked. And so if I just do that, I'm pretty sure that by like the first quarter to the second quarter, I could probably knock that book out. And that's probably as far as I've ever planned anything in my life is like 3 to 6 months out is kind of where I'm at. So those two things are gonna kind of be what I'm doing, and then after that, whatever feels good.
Nice. I think the idea of doing like more kind of like completed updates through social media too is really, at least for me, that's something that I personally am kind of wanting to do as well, because I post progress of each page as I work on it for my comic on like Instagram and Facebook. You guys are aware of that, I'm sure. And it kind of floods the images with all of this like uncompleted work,
Yeah.
And I do think that might deter people who are unaware of what like the finished product looks like, But it's not going to stop me from doing that, because like part of why I'm doing that is to hold myself accountable,
Right.
But I like the idea of like a smaller project that can be done kind of in a condensed amount of time that still gets the results of finished work, to kind of build the on social media and stuff like that. That sounds like a really good plan.
Well,
the book is really exciting.
Yeah, it's gonna be cool. But I had people, when I made this announcement, I had people say, "Hey, what happened to your book?" And it's like, I can do more than one thing, But they thought I was abandoning the book, and I'm like, no, I'm still gonna finish the book. I just I read this thing. I don't know how true this is. That like Finnish like handymen are like the happiest people if you go for like job satisfaction, and it's because those are the people where they come in. they open and close the loop really fast. So they come in and they start and finish a job, and then they start and finish a job, and they can do that, 3 to 8 times a day. And there's so much like completion satisfaction that they get that they love their jobs.
Yeah.
And so I feel like some of these projects where it's like, yeah, this is what I'm going to be doing for the next 18 months. And, you finish a page every once in a while or a panel every once in a while. I feel like I don't get as much completion satisfaction. And so I don't know, I'm still super young in all of this. So I'm still trying to figure out how I work. But I think if I'm able to like just do these short little stints of like finishing a bunch of stuff in a small period of time, it'll kind of give me, balancing out the sprints and the marathons, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. That sounds good. It's weird to me because it mixes because I don't know why, for some reason I feel like my work, I think everybody's got their own work style,
Yeah.
And like my work style is like once I get into something, it's like once I commit to something, it's really hard for me to back out. And
Right.
that can be a good thing or a negative thing, like I think each has their strengths and weaknesses, with that kind of thing. Because like the downside is if I get in on a project that's not that great, like my first graphic novel wasn't that good. Well, then again, you've done that too. I mean, you got a crap ton of pages done for a comic, so you do have commitment, to projects.
Oh yeah. I finished 62 pages on my first comic.
Yeah. So
that's how I learned to draw,
Yeah.
was doing that project. It was terrible and they were awful. But actually it wasn't until my pen just died. It wasn't until I was forced to abandon something because I had to get my master's to keep my day job.
Yeah.
That I actually looked back and said, well, I'm going to take a break from this while I do this. And then when I came back to it was when I realized how bad it was, that I was just, I don't know. It's not worth finishing because I had leveled up so much and I wasn't a good storyteller at the time. Like it was terrible storytelling. But it was really, really valuable. And it did build some really good habits because I had spent 15 years kind of noodling here or there where I'd only draw by assignment, if I could.
Yeah.
And that was terrible. And so I would do 1 or 2 drawings a year, because there wasn't anything. So I really sat down on that project and nailed it. But then up until recently, I haven't really done like shorter projects, and they are so fulfilling. That's actually what I did right after the 100 Days of Animation is I said, I worked on this short film that I still want to finish, but I realized why there's teams of people that do animation and not, you really don't necessarily have like one person doing it unless that's their full-time job or whatever. But
yeah. Or if it's got to be either that or you're completely like locked in a basement just drawing like for insane amounts of hours, or you come up with like a quick and sloppy way to do it.
Yeah, you sacrifice something.
When you were doing 100 Days of Animation, I was like, man, that is a tall order for one person to do.
Yeah.
Right. And that was just in my ignorance that I was like, oh yeah, I'll totally just knock this 6-minute short out in 100 days.
Yeah.
And little did I know, how stupid that was. But I mean, I love that story that I wrote, and I have it all boarded out and everything. And I think it'd be really, really good. And I don't know, I want to figure out a way to finish it. But if I were to do it myself, it's like a 3-year project. I mean,
get your students on it.
I've actually considered that. I've looked into doing internships and things, but morally, I want to make sure that I pay people, and I don't have the disposable income to, because I don't want to trick people into working for free.
Well, but okay, so there's a few ways you could do it that aren't kind of a corrupt way. Like one is, the students would get credited in the film.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And then the which isn't all that different from exposure, but still it gives them a reel, which is huge for like anybody who's interested in animation. And then aside from that, like you also could mentor them and teach them the programs.
Right.
And that's why they're in school in the first place, you know? So there might be ways, but I'm sure you have thought of it, you know, but
yeah, I mean, I've kind of become, you know, I'm not one of those hardliners that says never work for free.
yeah,
I used to be, but I've kind of become this voice in the classes that I teach of like, your work has value, you need to get paid. So it would be really probably confusing and seem very disingenuous for me to then turn around and say,
do this for no pay.
do this
and
for no
exposure.
pay. And, yeah. So,
Yeah.
but I do agree. I mean, I've actually been approached by a couple students that are like, hey, I'd love to help you finish that. And so, you know, I mean, if they come to me, that's a whole different story, but I don't know. Even just managing a project like that is a lot of work. But I'll finish it one day.
You will.
It might just be one scene at a time. So.
Yeah. That's the weird thing. Like, so for me, it's like, I'm accepting of the fact that like the project I'm on right now might be like 5, might be 10 years, you know? And I'm okay with that, which is weird.
That's awesome that you're okay with it.
But there is also this weird thing of like, I don't necessarily enjoy it. I enjoy the result, but I don't enjoy the process that much. Like, but on the other hand, like I had to do some rebranding for new business cards because I haven't made my own business cards in years, you know, because I haven't needed them.
Those are sick, by the way. I saw those the other day, and they are amazing.
Thanks, man.
Yeah, I was really stoked. Yeah, that's gonna look awesome. And you're gonna do foil, right?
Yeah. We'll see. I'll probably do a vlog on it, you know, because like I've never really. I mean, I've done foil for like work, but I've never done it personally.
Yeah.
And there's something different when you do it completely yourself that is kind of exciting. So I'll probably do a little vlog about it. And there were already some hiccups with the production process. So, because I'm trying something a little more complex than I think they can achieve. So I had to really simplify, but I think they'll come out. But anyhow, so the cool thing about that was I got to kind of exercise some muscle that I've built over the years because I know typography pretty well.
Yeah.
And I got to do it and finish it and post it and it's done. And I don't have to use it again. I don't have to like redo it. I don't have to do another page exactly like it. And there was a moment of like similar when I did that Monty Python poster recently. Like that felt really good because it was like one and done. It's done. It's over. You know, like once it's out, I can sell it, and that's one product. It's done. I have to admit, I think like so for me, I think for going into this next year, I think I'm kind of becoming more of the in-between of where I was last year, where I was like, I'm just going to focus only on my comic. I think I need those little, what's weird is like my personality is more long-term, but I still think you need those little hits of completion. And I mean completion where you're done, you know, you don't have to like, if you do one illustration, it's done, you know? Yeah. That is a good feeling. And it felt really good. And I was like, I need to do this probably, you know, like building a habit to do it more frequently.
I think I'm hearing that you're going to do a sticker stint in the future.
Maybe I might have to jump on that. I don't know. I don't know if that particular medium's going to work for what I'd want to do, but I definitely would probably be interested in ramping up the t-shirt designs. Yeah. And actually what's interesting is because of like how much I love working with just type and like design. I think I might do a little bit more of that kind of shirt where it'll be typographic, but kind of like really sexy type.
Yeah.
I think that might be kind of where I head because I had just dipped into that before I got the full-time gig doing art direction. And what I do at work is really fulfilling and stuff, but it's like really quick design. You know, we're not doing you know, projects where you have like a week to spend to like really get your kerning perfect and, you know, custom make your type. That's not feasible for most of the time frames at work. So it might be kind of nice to do that as a side project and different enough from what I'm doing with the comic where it'll be like a break, you know?
Yeah.
So that is, anyhow, just when you mentioned that, like that resonated because that's very similar to one of my goals. It's like, because I'm hoping to do that this next year.
Yeah. Well, I'm digging what you're saying because that's I feel the same way. Like I'll finish a page, but it took me like 3 days or a week or, you know, or whatever. But like, I mean, every night I'm like, you know, love it or hate it. That one's done and it's in the can and I'm not looking back and I'm moving on tomorrow. And it's a ton of completion. And so it feels really good. Just at the end of this, I'm not going to have 30 good stickers, but I'll have 10 or 12.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and that's the thing, and you'll learn something each time because you're doing something outside of the box.
Right.
And that's 30 new products for your store.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another point is part of the sticker stand. What I'm doing is what I'm encouraging everybody to do is get into print on demand. You know, it's like you don't have to hold inventory. Like put it on TeePublic, put it on Design by Humans, put it on Threadless. You know, put it on all those sites and. You know, and I've already had a couple people say, "Hey, I want to buy this." I'm like, "Cool, it'll be up at the end of the month," you know, because or maybe I don't know. I'm still trying to figure out when to put it up, but yeah, because my store is lacking too. You know, I don't have nearly the store that you've got, Scott. So
I can tell you this as far as like the stickers and everything on say like Redbubble or whatever, because you know I get an alert anytime I sell something on Redbubble.
Yeah,
and if it comes up that it's a sticker, I'm like, oh. because either it's a shirt that I get $4 for or it's a sticker that I get $0.25 for. So it's like, thanks. But you know,
do you do stickers on TeePublic at all?
I think so. Yeah, I don't know if I pulled them off for that reason because I was just worried that if somebody just wants the artwork, are they going to be like, well, I like the artwork, but I don't want to spend the money on a t-shirt, so I'll just get a sticker. Now that may not be the same case. Like I know that definitely is the way it is at like conventions, I think. But it might be different like online because I think people would, because I don't sell shirts at conventions. Shirts are I mean everyone loves t-shirts. The problem is, you know, you never know how much to make, so it doesn't really unless that's all you do and you've kind of honed that business. For at conventions anyway, shirts are kind of hard because you don't know inventory and all that kind of stuff. But if it's print on demand, then you don't really have to worry about that. But I just know that I never try to put the same. If I'm selling at a convention, I never try to put like if I've got a big print, I never want to put it on a postcard too, the same design, because they'll just pick up the postcard and buy that. You know.
Oh, that's interesting.
So, but I don't know if that's the same case with like the. You know, because if I see something cool, me personally, I don't know if I speak for everyone, but I'd rather have it on a t-shirt because I wear t-shirts and I don't really put stickers. I mean, I'll put a sticker on like a sketchbook or something, but I don't put them on my car or anything like that. So, but I know Redbubble, I get sticker sales. I may have taken them off for that reason. Like there's a whole thing this could be a whole other topic, but I sort of limit the products I sell, you know, to mainly just t-shirts and a lot of that stuff. Cause I don't know, some of it, I guess I shouldn't care as far as on Redbubble, but on my own site, I don't want to put it on a coffee mug and just all the different things cause you can slap it on every single thing there is. And in some ways, maybe that leads to more sales. I don't know, but.
Yeah, I don't know. I've sold shower curtains with stuff through Society 6. Like people have bought like shower curtains and clocks and like throws like for their bed.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, like I look at what they're spending on a throw and I get about the same percentage that I get if they just bought like a print or a shirt.
Oh, really? Really?
And so, I mean, I could mark it up more, but I don't want to make it ridiculous, you know?
But anything where they're printing at that size, it costs so much money.
Oh, it's insane. But it's cool that, like, to me, I just like the idea that, like, there's a couple people out there with, like, a spoiled milk, like, you know, shower curtain. Like, it's,
Right.
that's kind of awesome. But yeah, like, I agree. I think you got to limit it in general. Because like those sales are still not going to match like what you get, you know, on your general prints. And you know, the more on the menu, the less people are going to buy, basically.
Yeah.
And
So-
for me, I look at all of my products and stuff as kind of loss leaders. Like I'm not looking to make money off of my store. And
Yeah.
so for me, stickers are great because they're a conversation starter. And so
Oh,
somebody who throws it on their laptop or whatever, that laptop's going to be around for a year to 5 years, you know. And if it's on that, then people will say, "Oh, where'd you get that?" And "Oh, it's this dude," you know. And so I'm looking for more of like an audience building thing.
Yeah.
If you sell it on your own shirt, if you're selling on your own site, if you sell it on people don't pay attention. It's just like when somebody buys something off of Etsy. Like if somebody buys something from my Etsy store, they're not going to say, "Oh, I bought it from Circworks Art Labs." They're going to say, "Oh, I bought it off of Etsy." You know.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. There's a question, and I'll probably have you answer it, Josh, because you have more experience with T-shirts, and we can all probably chime in. But I sketching. Do you see that one? It's the last comment here.
What does it say? I plan on doing T-shirt designs this year since even $5 would be very helpful. What should I consider? I plan on using Redbubble, but is that a good choice? You know, like, I've started to come to the opinion that like the platform kind of doesn't matter as much as the concept, you know, with shirts. Now, you know, like what I would do is just come up with like really solid concepts, like concepts that, to me, a solid concept, and Scott can get into this too, and so can Cory, I'm sure, because you guys are pretty amazing at concepts, you know. But to me, like a concept that's going to sell a shirt, at least like a good question to ask is like, does it say everything it needs to say at a quick glance? Does it invite conversation? You know, does it kind of have some kind of juxtaposition going on? Whatever it is, if, you know, at the worst case scenario, it's like, and I've done all kinds of like shirt designs that go from like the lowest version of that juxtaposition to the kind of more like high-end version of that. So the lowest would be like, I did a shirt that was like Abe Lincoln, and it was a pun. So it's just Abraham Lincoln dressed as Link from like Zelda. Like, and that's like, that's the low, like, you know, it's like I did it really like rendered and stuff because it's like, you know, if you're going to do it, you got to go full bore, especially with a pun. Like if you do a pun, execute it the best you possibly can. But like, yeah, so from that to just kind of like stuff that's a little more complicated and stuff that maybe is just more like artistic and it's about like juxtaposition of size or something like that, you know? But whatever it is, you want to make sure your ideas are saying something to somebody who's not your friend, who's not like familiar with who you are. Because if you hit on one of those, then you can put it on Redbubble. If it doesn't sell on Redbubble, you can put it somewhere else. It'll find an audience, you know, a lot of the time.
I would say put it on. I would put it on all of them if, you know, assuming that you have the time to set them all up, because, you know, I get a little bit of money from Redbubble. I get my, and this is, you know, you know, it's going to vary from person to person, but I've had the most success on TeePublic. But that could just be because somewhere along the lines they started finding my T-shirts, because in the beginning it wasn't like that. I don't know what the you know, magic, you know, I don't know the way you get people to find your stuff on those sites. But some of my stuff just went on long enough that people starting to find it, and it's the same stuff on each platform. So, you know, why does one work better than the other? And I mean, I'm not going to say that TeePublic's going to work better than Redbubble for you, but I've got my stuff on Redbubble, TeePublic, Designed by Humans, T-Fury, which works a little differently, I think. I don't think you can just upload something to T-Fury. I think you have to be selected. I'm trying to think. Well, yeah, Cory uses Threadless artist shops. So there's tons of these places out there. And you know, if you're going to create a design, I would try, you know, if you have the time, put it on all of them and see what happens.
Yeah, and like focus on the design and then the platform, you know?
Yeah.
Because like that's the thing, like a bad concept is just, you could put it on any platform in the world and most of the time it's just not going to sell.
Yeah, and so, I mean, different ones give you different payouts. And I forgot which ones, you know, what the difference is. They're pretty close. You mentioned $5. I don't know any that pay $5 a shirt. They're usually around $3, maybe $4 if you're lucky. But yeah.
But I mean, on a lot of those sites, you know, they could grab a hoodie and you get a little bit more or whatever.
True. Yeah, I should start maybe thinking about some hoodies and things like that.
Yeah, and I haven't had much success in that area, but my philosophy has been get it out there, you know, because what I think is that you've got what you have is you have some people that are like, they're going to find me through social media and follow whatever link to something that they see on Twitter or Instagram or whatever. But then there's a whole other series of audiences out there that they're the people that are on TeePublic. They're the people that are like Designed by Humans community. They're the people that are like, you know, they search at Etsy or Redbubble or Society6 for those things. And their money's just as green, even if they don't know who you are. And so at first I was trying to find like, what is the best one out there that I should do? And then I actually think I watched one of Scott's videos and I was like, oh yeah, why wouldn't I just put it on a bunch of them? And so I just picked 3 just because it's kind of time consuming. It does take an hour or so to get all the keywords right and all that jazz as you're doing it. And so I just picked a couple, and I would just try it out. And really the worst case scenario for that is nobody buys your stuff and you learned that, you know, either your stuff isn't good yet, or you're not promoting it well, or that's not the channel for you. And so if you've got the money, I would test out some products as well. I would go in there and see, because I've sold some stuff on some sites, and I was like, I wonder what these are like, and I get it, and I don't like the quality, and so I don't want to sell people low quality stuff, and some people are okay with that, and that's fine. You know, everybody's different, but I would say I haven't done Redbubble personally, but I would say Redbubble is fine. Designed by Humans, T-Fury, TeePublic, Society6, Spreadshirt, $6 shirt. There's a few others that take open submissions, and I can't remember but I mean, just the term that you want to search for is print on demand. So just look up print on demand and then add a product name after that. And you can get print on demand stickers, print on demand mugs, print on demand whatever. And what I like about print on demand is that you have no inventory. Because I had the same problem, Scott, when I was working for a company where we designed, I don't want to get too much into this, but we would brand products. And so we would design the brand, and we'd come up with a bunch of swag and t-shirts and whatever. And no matter how much I analyzed the data, I could never order the right amount of sizes.
Yeah.
It seemed like sometimes I'd be really heavy on the extra larges, and I'd have people clamoring for extra smalls or whatever.
Yeah.
I could never get it right. And then the next run of shirts, it would be a totally different mix. You know, I'd have way too many extra smalls. Anyway, so I like print on demand for that because you get less money per unit, but I have no huge outlay of cash that's tied up into, you know, sunk sunk costs that aren't going to materialize into profits because they just sit there.
Yeah, and like that's a huge thing. Like the worst thing in the world about t-shirts, like I remember doing a convention, like a comic book convention, where I did a bunch of research, and I had worked in the t-shirt industry long enough to where I was like, okay, I know what sells well. I know that you need a ton of men's mediums because that's like 80% of the buyers of t-shirts buy men's mediums. And then you need your, like there's all these different classes and categories of sizes and stuff. So you order those sizes, and then inevitably, at least in my case, like everybody wanted an extra large or a small, and like in men's, and then women wanted mediums, which was unusual because usually women's smalls are the ones that sell. So like all the data didn't match what the people wanted there. So I only ended up selling a few shirts, and then I was stuck with all these shirts to have to unload at future conventions. It took like 4 or 5 conventions to clear that inventory.
Yeah.
And that sucks, because like, and it could also potentially end up in a situation where you just can't clear it, and then you end up with 50 shirts or 20 shirts that are just sitting around your house, or God forbid, like 100 shirts.
Well,
so,
yeah, if you have 100 shirts and you spent somewhere between $4 to $8 per shirt, like that's a lot of money that you might not ever recover. So
yeah, and I mean the reason it's such a popular industry for people is because like that's a terrible loss. However, if you can sell that shirt for $20, you're literally like making 3 times or 3/4 of the investment.
Oh yeah, the markup is
it's
awesome.
Huge. So it's like, it's one of the best markups. It's like, I think prints might be a little better, which it used to not necessarily be. Yeah. But limited edition prints and stuff are probably one of the better markups too. But
so here's a free idea for whoever's listening, because I'm not going to do it. But if you want to avoid some of this and get the best of both worlds, get a sublimation printer.
Oh, yeah.
You can do sublimation, and I had a student who did this, and they got set up for about $350 with the sublimation printer and the big press, and then you just bring a bunch of blank t-shirts and you have a bunch of designs, and you print it and press it right there. And so then you're not left over with a bunch of like shirts that nobody wants, because a blank shirt can always become something, but like a shirt that's printed, I mean, there's nothing you can do with that other than sell it or throw it away. So if you want to, like, I think, and I haven't seen this very much at conventions, but I think it'll start to happen where people just show up with all the gear that they need to do to like print right there. You just walk up and you say, I want this one on this size and this color, and bam, you're done. And there's some limitations to that, but
yeah, and I think that's just going to increase, because now with 3D printing and then UV printing, where you can pretty much print on anything and you can print in 3 dimensions, it's like I am waiting for the day where you go to a convention, there's like a toy manufacturer that has a 3D printer and then a UV printer that's going to paint the toy that you're buying,
Yep.
And then you just, boom, it's all like, a process line. It'll be interesting to see though. We got to get back to goals.
Yeah.
So any other like goals, Scott, like any other big goals? Well, I guess I think I already hit my goal. One of my first goals, which is that doing frequent like one-off things. So yeah. What about you, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's kind of going to be, I mean, there was another goal that I did not accomplish I didn't even start it, but and that was an art book, and I still want to do that. I don't know necessarily that I will have that book done by the end of this year. But I definitely, one thing I do want to do is I want to start laying out figuring out the graphic design and coming up with a format and everything, and at least get started on it. So, because I don't know, like it would have to be something I would crowdfund, I guess, because I mean, it would be a color book and I'd want it to be nice and everything. So it would be a lot of out-of-pocket cost if I was to front it myself. So, but I don't know how many Kickstarters in a year people will support. I don't know, maybe as many as you put out. I don't know. I'm not sure. So but I know I'm going to have to kickstart this issue of the comic book. So, but I do. I mean, I've got the artwork and everything, and there's more pieces I want to do for it. But it's just the way I want to do it is a pretty massive task as far as just the graphic design, because I've got something in mind, the way I want it laid out and everything. And so, but I can start building those templates for those, and then start gradually dropping in the artwork and getting that ready. But I would like to have a nice art book. So that's a big one too. But there's so many other things that I just, like I said, I want to kind of continue on the road that I'm going with the products I already have out there, and try to bring more focus to those. So we'll see,
Nice. So like one of the goals that I'm aiming for, and I've talked about it all last year, is like, I'm on like on social media, I think it's like page 50 something. In reality, including the chapter break pages, I'm on page 63. That's what I'm working on. So I'm like a page and a half, well, about 2 pages short of my goal for the year. So I think Scott, you and I are almost like at the same pace with our productivity, which is why it always weirds me out when you're like, no, you pump out pages. No, I don't. Like we're about the same on our output, I think.
But but if you look at the detail of my page compared to one of your pages, it's like night and day.
I don't know. Like, Scott, talk real quick and just show people the detail on the page you're working on right now.
Well, they don't all have this much detail, but this is an establishing shot. So
that's pretty detailed.
But yeah. Well, compare it to yours again with all the cross hatching and stuff. I mean, my style is very more simplistic. There's not even a lot of blacks. So, and hardly any cross hatching or anything. So
yeah, but strong structure, which that's the stuff that takes the most time, is the structure, not the execution, right? Like those buildings, man. I mean, that's like just laying out that perspective, all the grid behind it. That's a lot of work.
Yeah. But most of my pages have focused more on the characters and stuff. So I just want to do nice establishing shots, but a lot of that I kind of fudge when I get into like the backgrounds behind, like when I've got character scenes and stuff like that. So this probably isn't the most indicative page of the whole comic.
Yeah. So I whatever, man. Your pages look great. The thing that my goal for the year is, hopefully, like, what I'd like to do is be finished with the book by the end of the year, my first graphic novel for this series.
Oh, cool.
And so it'll be probably cap out at around 100 pages, maybe 110 or something. But like the catch is, like, I'm not big on goal setting in the sense of like, it's not set in stone, that's just that's the aim.
Mm-hmm.
And then the key thing about that is I'm being practical about it, in the sense that I don't expect to have a book by 2000. Like, I don't know if I'll necessarily have the book in print by this time next year, but I do hope that by this time next year I'll be completed with it, with the first book. So at least have all the page work done. And the majority of the types are already being done as I go, which is an advantage of that. But there, you guys know, there's like, with a long book, there's a lot of formatting still that you have to do afterwards. And then, I'd probably want like an author page, and like probably like a pretty badass cover and stuff like that. So that stuff, but I'm like, I don't know if I'll have that by this time next year, but I am hoping to have the interiors. So I think that's a feasible goal. We'll see. You know? But it's like, you know, it depends, because like these things go at like a slug-like pace, as you guys know, you know? So, but it's looking like if I keep up the same pace, I should be fine for that. So that's one of my that's probably my biggest goal for next year. Or this year, I guess I should say, now that it's this year. So hopefully, Cory, you and I will both have finished books by this time next year.
That'd be awesome.
And Scott,
Yep.
you're going to have a finished book probably like, you know, in a couple months, I'd imagine.
Hopefully,
At
that
least
would be
the art.
nice. That would be nice. Yeah.
Now, Scott, you do self-publishing where you're going to kickstart it, but then would you also be interested in being picked up by a publisher?
Yeah, of course. It's nothing like right now I'm pursuing, just because, you know, I mean, like, just because of the time it takes to put everything out, and I haven't really, again, I don't really focus that much on that aspect of it yet, but sure. Yeah. I don't know that how attractive this particular book is to any of the publishers out there, you know. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Yeah. And Josh, yours is so personal. I mean, obviously you're going to do some self-publishing, but would you also be interested in like, you know, if I don't know, if somebody came along, IDW or Dark Horse or somebody said, hey, you know, let's do this? Or is that something you're actively pursuing, or what?
I'll pursue it probably with specific publishers. There's some publishers that maybe not, you know, because there are disadvantages to publishing with some publishers.
Right.
In particular, like, what's the print run going to be? What is their marketing going to be like for the book? And would I have to handle all of the marketing anyway?
Yeah.
And in that case, I'd want to know, you know, there's just specific things that I'd want to know kind of before getting in bed with a publisher.
Right.
But I'm not anti-publisher. I'd love to, like, you know, if it were possible to have a publisher that has really good distribution, because that's the key, would be like, you know, having a publisher who has really strong distribution. So yeah, there's quite a few avenues I might pursue. I'm definitely pursuing the self-publishing first, because I have this little marketing strategy idea that I think will make pretty interesting vlogs too, as I start doing the hustling to kind of promote the book, because I have this weird kind of tactic. I have a couple of friends who've done a similar thing and have met with like mixed success, so I don't know. But I mean, my aim with it, and the way I feel like the comics industry is kind of moved, is like, I think you really have to kind of make a mark self-publishing before you really can get a decent publisher.
I would agree with that.
And I think when you see the, like, even the indie publishers I like, when you see the books that are like the baby, like the book that they're like, a publisher puts out a certain amount of books, but there's usually like one or two that they're really pushing for the year. And you know, with cartoonists, in the kind of comics I do, so I'm not talking about like Marvel and DC, you know, but pretty much most publishers who are doing indie stuff, like, they're gonna really put their guns behind like one or two books a year, because most independent publishers, they aren't putting out that many books in a year, you know. So like I said, my goal is to hopefully navigate my way to where where I'd be attractive to publishers, where I'd be one of the key books, not just another book that goes out and sells like, you know, maybe 1,000 copies max and then is lost, you know?
Yeah, right.
And then the big advantage of self-publishing it is that you can get your own copies at a lower cost than you could from your publisher a lot of the time. Because a lot of book publishers will have you buy the copies that you're going to sell at conventions and stuff. So unless you're at their booth. So if you're boothing on your own or you're doing a book signing at a store, sometimes the store will order it from the publisher. But it's a mixed bag. And I've watched like my wife go through that because she's had quite a few books out through like different kids publishers. And it's interesting how each publisher is a little different with that. But like a lot of authors, you can make a bigger profit if you order like a big box of books from your publisher at, a little over, I think it's pretty much at cost that you're ordering them, at like cost of printing, and then you get the return of selling those books, which is kind of cool. So, but to me, it's like, I don't know, there's a lot of legwork you have to do with or without a publisher. So my approach is going to be like, of course, I'll submit and put it out there on the off chance that maybe a publisher is like, you're the genius we've been looking for, But in all likelihood, I'm probably going to just end up hitting the self-publishing and hitting the promotion pretty hard, and then hopefully submitting for a lot of awards as well. Not because I'll get them, but because any of those little recognitions, like if you were to pick up like an Ignatz or like just any kind of cartooning award, it helps sell your book.
Yeah,
visibility on it. So probably submit to Best American Comics. Yeah, so I'm gonna hustle, and there's a lot that I need to research. So that's why I was like, I don't know if it'll be like this time next year I'll have a book, because there's like printed, because there's a lot to it. Even after the printing, it's like, what press do I want to send copies to?
Yeah.
Because that's an investment, because then you're paying, to send something out. It's like you want to really target. Well, Cory, you're really aware of that kind of stuff because you did marketing for years. So I might hit you up for advice on some of this stuff. But
no, I'll help, but I don't know if I know anything about the publishing. But
well, I could at least have you read my copy and stuff.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, so like it's that's a long-winded answer, but it's definitely like one of those, like, I'm not against publishers. I think honestly there are huge advantages to having a big publisher.
Yeah.
Even a small publisher with a good cult following, because if there's like a large group or even a small group of people who are already following that publisher's stuff and they like the stuff that company publishes,
yeah, just
by being affiliated with that company, it can actually help your brand a lot. So it's a mixed bag, but I'm interested. I'm looking into that kind of stuff, and we'll see. Right now, the primary focus though is just to get the work done and make sure it's good.
Right.
Because like if it's not good, then like the best publisher can put it out, and it's like I was saying about t-shirt concepts. It's just like the likelihood that it's going to be that one thing that's not that good that people are like, yeah, I'm going to spend a lot of money on that, I'd rather like feel confident in how good it is. Not 100% because I'm an artist, so of course I'm going to have self-doubts and stuff. But I'd rather feel confident that I did the absolute best on the book. And then I'll feel like I already kind of have had moments like that. I've shown the pages to some kind of movers in the comic world, and I didn't feel super nervous, which is like a first.
That's cool.
I mean, I felt slightly nervous, but not about the content or the art, and that's a new thing. So I'm looking forward to that. As long as the other thing with self-publishing is the quality of the book, because I most likely will be doing the Amazon, thing.
CreateSpace?
Yeah, CreateSpace. And I'm a little nervous about the quality of their blacks, but the nice thing about CreateSpace is like I could literally order one and be like, okay, not for me,
Right.
So yeah, so that's another thing about the process of the book is like I'm gonna want to get a copy and make sure it's like not crap, so I'm not selling people something that's not worth their money. But it'll be interesting. It's going to be a big book. Like, I think I'm still torn between 8x10 and 8.5x11. Depending, it could scale either way.
Yeah.
But ideally, I'd like it to be 8x10 because I think that's a little smaller and more kind of a yeah. Anyhow, sorry. I think 8x10 will be a good size. It's just the readability because I already will have really small type on my pages. But you know, we'll see.
So Josh, you had mentioned, in addition to the comic books, kind of setting these smaller little projects that you want to do. And I know that you've tweeted out, and on Instagram you got a brand new logo and you're doing new business cards. So I don't know if that's something you touched on, but that's sort of a new thing for you, because I know you and I were kind of in the same opinion that we weren't really taking on that much freelance stuff. So I'm just curious, like, what's that all about? And are you looking to do more T-shirts? Are you looking to take on more freelance stuff, or?
It's a mix. Like actually what the impetus for just doing the business cards was just like, I was realizing, because I was like, okay, the big advantage at doing Gallery 1988 from everybody I've talked to who did recommend Gallery 1988 is the connections you make. It's not going to be like, you're not going to be a millionaire from selling affordable prints, you know, but you can make some really valuable connections at the shows. And so I was like, which I've always been fairly good at, like hustling in that way. Like, one of the advantages of doing comic conventions that I didn't even realize at the time when I was doing them was that I got a lot of work out of those. Because sometimes, like, somebody would come by my booth. Like, I ended up doing these, like, a series of like 4 books for a publisher. And those illustrations paid for my wife and I's move to Portland at the time. And that came out of an indie comic convention, because one of the people who came by and bought my book was an editor, you know, and then hit me up and was like, I know you're a cartoonist, but do you want to do these like boring diagrammatical illustrations? And I was like, yes, I'm desperate for work at the time. Right.
I do like money.
Yeah. And so, like, and that kind of things happened more and more the more of those kind of things I did. But one of the advantages was I always had a business card ready, promotional materials ready, and I was never nervous about being shameless about self-promotion. I even put it on my cards, usually on most of my business cards. This one included, say, shameless self-promotion. And part of why I do that is because every time I've handed that to somebody, especially people who are like kind of like could actually make a big difference in your career, is usually they'll look at it and chuckle. And that's a good in right there, because they get 1 million of these cards. And so, like, anything that's going to make them go like stop and have any reaction is putting you a little above. So anyhow, I know that's a long-winded answer, but so it just dawned on me, I haven't been doing freelance a lot, and I haven't really done like a lot of art shows or anything recently. And I was like, oh my gosh, my business cards are from like 2008 or something, like they're really old. And like some of the information's not even accurate on there. So that's the thinking behind the new branding. And aside from the fact that, like, it's nice to have a new logo, you know, that's going to roll over to, but I'm not doing a massive run of business cards. I'm doing a really small run, because it's literally, I'm just going to give it to people that I really want to work with, or, you know, really want to touch base with. I'm not going to hand them out like I did at most of those conventions, you know, which is why I'm doing gold foil, because it's a little more pricey.
I don't know much about gold foil. How do you do a small run of gold foil? Because are there plates to set up or something, or
are there what?
Are there plates to set up or screens? I've never done a gold foil thing.
I think it's actually so it's hot foil, so I think they actually do make a plate. But this is through I don't want to get too much into it, because I'm going to do a vlog about it when I get them.
Okay.
but I mean, there's a couple companies that do it for a much cheaper rate, and I'm not quite sure what their process is. I think the majority, like we do gold foil at my hot foil at my work. It's like hot foil, so it could be any metallic color. But I think the majority of the time it's actually like the foil's placed down and then there's a hot stamp that's pressed on it that imprints it on the paper. You know what I mean?
Okay.
It kind of like melts it to the paper. So it's like a cheap way of doing what they used to do with real gold foil back in the day with gold leaf. But it's just way quicker because you're not having to burnish it, you know?
Yeah.
But the downside of that is because of that process, you can't have like super fine details. So my original logo is cool because I can use it anywhere. But it's like too many hatching lines. And so I had to really reduce that because it's going to be at a small size and the holes between the lines would just kind of like the foil would just cling to it, wouldn't come off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's a new experience. It'll be interesting. I'll get a little more into it in that vlog, but yeah, so like the other thing about it is I'm not necessarily looking for freelance, but I am looking to build the brand because it's, like I said, I'm hoping to have this book done by next year. And so I wouldn't mind kind of building more of my social media and stuff like that too. And so that's going to come in handy too. Like if I meet, you know, some like a reporter or something like that, you know? So that's the thinking behind it. I don't know if it's silly. The other thing is it's fun to have a new business card. It's been a while.
Yeah, I really need to have a new one too.
Yeah, because like you get used to having them. Like, because usually, you know, when I was, man, it took me years to get through my first batch, you know? Because you always, I think when you're younger, you always like over order. You know, so you've got like 600 business cards, something ridiculous. And then it's like, it takes you like 6 years to get through those. So, yeah, but that's kind of the thinking behind that. But I do want to start making more designs for my own stores and stuff like that. So it's more in line with what you're doing, Scott, and you're kind of aiming for as well, Cory. Like it's like, I think when you have the kind of day job, it's like that's secure. And you know, it's art related. It's like it's nice to be able to actually have the stuff you do be really personal and be stuff you like, you know?
Yeah.
So I feel like, to me, like the idea of just doing, say, like a bunch of typographic shirts or something, or whatever kind of that design win would be. But whatever that is, I'm going to have to make it a habit of some sort. So I'm going to have to I really do have to do some thinking about it, because I really would have to set like a deadline. Like, you know, like every other Friday or something, I have a new t-shirt design or whatever that is, you know.
But your process in t-shirts is fairly intensive, because I was listening to you talk about that. And I mean, you're doing all the word lists, and then kind of, I don't know if you're doing like spider maps or mind maps, but I mean, you're kind of those ideas that you build. I mean, it seems like a significant portion of producing that shirt is in coming up with the idea rather than the execution.
Yeah, that's the big headache for me of shirts, because like once again, it's like, you know, I could have a really lovely design, but it's not going to sell if it doesn't have a strong concept.
Right.
And so that's the tough part, is the concepting, and that requires like time, you know. And so that's the part that I got to kind of work on. So like I said, I got to kind of narrow it down, come up with some limitations, you know, and then it'll be a feasible thing for this year, you know?
Yeah.
Because like if I just wing it and I just say like, hey, I can make one t-shirt design a week and it can be anything, the likelihood of me sticking with that is pretty slim, because the options are limitless. And to me, that never leads to a lot of freedom. It's like, if I narrow it down to something like, okay, for the next 6 months, every other week I'll do a typographic design of a shirt. It's got to be type, you know, something like that. Then at least I have some boundaries to kind of work within where I can be free, which is weird. It's kind of like comics, you know, it's like if you don't have that outline, you can end up kind of freestyling your way to just a jumbled story that makes no sense, you know?
Right.
And I've done it, and it's, you know, it leads to some interesting choices, and it leads to some, you know, plot holes that you're like, ooh, I can't fill this plot hole because it's just, it's a mess, you know? So
I've found it leads to a lot of exposition.
yes, yeah, tons of exposition. And so like, so for me, it's like having some boundaries helps, but then having the freedom, like the current page that I'm working on right now, I'm just coming up with my layout for it. It's the next page for quarterly stories. And it's like, because of the fact that I've mapped out like the whole story, but then I have like these little sections that like I rough each page at a time from my outline. So it's like, once I've finished inking and finishing a page, I still have a bit of freedom because I have a rough idea, but I don't have a final idea of what that next page is going to look like, unless it's like a spread or something. And so because of that, like I came to this part that I had written where I was talking about more of this panic attack stuff. So if you're following quarterly stories so far, it's like a story about mental illness. A lot of it touches on mental illness. And so I've been like the story at this point has kind of gotten into one of the characters having panic disorder, and then just kind of getting into the nitty gritty of like what it actually feels like to have a panic attack. And so like this one section like that I'm working on right now, it just lent itself to doing something with paneling I've never done, which is like doing clockwise paneling. And so I'm going to try to do that, and we'll see how that works. But that's kind of, to me, like the limitation of the script and the outline and knowing exactly the beats I want to hit on the page is enough to kind of keep me contained to where I can have the freedom to be like, but I've never done a clockwise paneled page, so I'm going to do that now, you know? Because it fits, and like have it, so there's a little freedom there too. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I hope that makes sense. I'm rambling. But I am kind of excited about a clockwise page, so I'm trying to kind of lay that out and make it work right now.
Sounds really cool. I'm anxious to see what you have in mind.
Yeah, I mean, I just got that book monograph, so it's got me back on my like crazy Chris Ware stint because the guy's a genius. He just released this book on Amazon, and I was fortunate to have like a family member who was willing to kind of just buy it for me for Christmas. It's like this big book, and it's an autobiography of Chris Ware. So it talks about just how he got into cartooning and stuff like that. It's not like a graphic novel. It's just showing a bunch of his old work. Some of his comics, like, and the beauty of it is a lot of it's his comic pages with like blue line and ink and stuff like that.
I love those books.
And because of that, it's talking about like his early stuff when he was doing like Quimby the Mouse, which I don't know if you've seen those pages, but they're like all silent strips with this little mouse character that looks oddly like old school Mickey Mouse.
Is he the dude that got sued by Disney for that? Like they tried to shut him down?
No, that's a different guy. I'm forgetting that guy. That guy was an artist in the 70s, and I think he was in Zap.
Yeah,
and Ware is like a generation later from Raw in the 1980s. So Ware came up with like Charles Burns and Seth, and Art Spiegelman was like kind of their father figure in that scene. So it's like a scene like 10 years later. But the pages, like, anyhow, just the thinking on the pages, like the thing I love about Chris Ware's stuff is whenever I read it, it makes me rethink my own paneling, because he does crazy things with paneling that like other cartoonists just can't do or didn't think to do. And so for me, I like that because while my work looks nothing like his, it's like the way he's arranging the page like kind of screws up my head in a good way, where it's like when I hit my pages again, I'm like, oh, I can do something like clockwise paneling, you know? So, which I haven't seen, I don't know if I've seen him do that, but he does these weird pages where your eye will lead all over the place. So anyhow, so that got me thinking about that. And that was a long rant on creative, like coming up with boundaries to kind of work within where you can be free. So like, that's how I have to do goals, is I have to kind of come up with, like Scott, like we were saying at the top, you know, you have to kind of come up with like specific points to hit in order to accomplish something, because otherwise you're kind of running blind, and like that usually will lead to disappointment, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one of my big goals this year, is to kind of, and like another thing is like, I think that part of what keeps me fresh with the roughs, so I don't kind of make stale work, is I really do have to be making other art other than what I do at work and other than my comic, you know, because you have to stay fresh with what you're working on.
Yeah. And for me, I like limitations a lot. But I actually come at it from what am I going to become? And if I'm, you know, people aren't what they say, they are what they do. And so I look at it on actions. Like, one of the big problems that I've had recently is I've been spending way too much playing video games. And so one of the reasons I did this sticker stint was I was like, all right, I gotta you know, kind of reevaluate how I'm spending my time. And so, you know, I set some rules out, but that was all based on what I'm going to become. If I'm going to be a successful artist, then I need to behave like a successful artist. And so, you know, people who are productive and successful, you know, are going to get their work done before they play. You know, they're gonna, and so I'm coming at those same limitations. You know, where I'm going to do, you know, this and not do this or whatever. But I'm coming at them from, you know, kind of the idea of becoming something or continuing to be something rather than, you know, arbitrary goals and limitations, which is, I'm not saying that that's what you're doing. I'm just saying in my own mind, like for some reason, it's really important for me to differentiate the why of the behavior. Because otherwise it just becomes meaningless and I don't do it.
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And that's why I was saying, it's like, I really want to, I think that's why I felt the need to kind of over explain the boundaries thing, because the thing for me is like, if the goal, if I want to do something as an artist, like I'm driven to do stuff as an artist. I'm driven to make stuff.
Right.
But there's certain stuff that I really admire other people making that I want to make. And there's a way to do it for my personality. And that, you know, and I've noticed this with students too. A lot of students would feel like when they're first learning typography, which I felt too, I hated type when I first took type. And I remember feeling like, well, why can't I just do whatever? You know, who cares about kerning and like memorizing typefaces and cap heights and stuff, you know? But then once you start learning those limitations, you suddenly are free to actually make really good type.
Yeah.
And then the more you kind of like, even creating fonts, it's all about like limitations. Like it's like, I'm gonna have this arch on this point on every letter, you know, finding like those familiar limitations. So like, that's what I mean by limitation, is just like, I need a box to be free in.
Yeah.
But the box can't be too small, because then I'll feel restricted and I won't be free. So like, to me, it's about finding balance so that I can actually do stuff I want to do. Like another goal for this year is just for me to continue working out every single day. And I've been sticking with that for about now it's about 45 minutes a day. And I'm at like day like 70 of like the 45-minute one. So I want to keep doing that. But that wasn't easy to do. And like initially I had to set myself in a box to build the habit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's kind of all I'm talking about, is like for me to really like have fun making t-shirts, I really would have to actually either sit around and wait for like the muse to hit me, or like really hit that flow where I like, clock in and I'm free to like come up with a lot of concepts because I have a certain time of day I do it,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a weird thing. And I don't know if it works for everybody, but for me, that's what I absolutely need,
I think if you mentioned the muse, and I feel like this is a real beginner mistake that I know I did for a while. But I feel like if you wait for the muse to strike, you wait for that inspiration, you wait for the mood to strike you, you wait for, whatever, you will never produce anything of any value consistently, because it does take, and it's weird in a creative application of something where everybody's a free spirit and we're doing this because we don't like calculators or whatever, I mean, it's weird to say that, schedules and limitations and organization and everything that Stephen Pressfield talks about in the War of Art, it's weird to think that that is helpful, but I think it's essential. I mean, otherwise you're just another one of those people online that says, I've got this great idea for a novel.
Mm-hmm.
Who doesn't have a great idea for something? I've got this great idea for a TV show. They even make fun of that in Baby Mama. The guy says, "Oh, I'm an inventor," and they said, "Oh, what have you invented?" And he said, "Oh, have you heard of the iPad or the iPod?" And she said, "Yeah." And he's like some white trash dude, and he's like, "Yeah, I had that idea like a long time ago, and I'm really bummed about it. That they stole it from me." It's like. You got to make stuff, and so ideas are actually not that hard to do. But I find that if you think you have an idea, you'd be surprised at how little you actually have until you try to execute it. Yeah. Because there's a ton inside of that you won't reveal. You won't know what's missing. Man, I need a cough drop or something. You won't know what's missing until you try to execute it. And once you try to execute it, then you're like, oh, I didn't realize that there's this hole and there's this thing, and I didn't think about this or whatever. And so it's really in the execution of stuff, which is only going to happen with dedication, organization, and some sort of process and setup of limitations. That's the only way that execution can really like work. Because other than that, it's you're just another guy, who thought of the iPad or iPod or whatever.
Yeah, and I mean, I think by the nature of becoming an artist, it's like you're kind of choosing a little bit of discomfort,
Yeah, or a lot.
So it's like, it's and once again, it's like. It's just like the working out thing. It's like it's uncomfortable at first, but then it becomes really healthy and good, and like you feel good. You start looking a little better, and like.
Do you though?
Well, not for me. That didn't work. It hasn't worked out too much. It didn't fix my screwed up teeth, but at the same time, it's like I feel a million times better doing it than I did before. But it. It wasn't the easy thing, and it definitely wasn't like if I were just going for like whatever makes me feel good, I wouldn't have started because it felt like crap for like the first month and a half, and it's like that with comics. Like it really, to me, I had never found that sweet spot where it just feels great. Even doing that logo that I'm jazzed about now. For my cards, it's like that was a nightmare to build.
It looked like
It's
it.
like that's just how it goes. What's up, Scott?
Oh, I said it looked like it was a nightmare to build. It was pretty detailed.
But it's cool, and it's like because of building habits, it's like you spend that nightmare building it, and then you have this thing that you're like, wow, that looks like really hard to make. And it wasn't as hard as it looks. It looks that hard because like I've played with type for years, and I know tricks to like make effective type, so it made it easier. But that's, you know, years of like playing with type and screwing up and not understanding, you know, how to build a letter, you know, just like a lot of that, and just kind of having this idea of where I wanted to get that kind of made that achievable. But it's like, it's still never that fun to kind of do for me. I don't know. I don't know if do you guys have like a blast working on your art? Like, I mean, in the process, do you?
No. I've just come to grips with like, if you choose this life, and I don't want to be one of those guys who glorifies martyrdom or anything like that, but there is a certain amount of necessary pain that you are going to experience. And if you're not doing that, then I just wonder a little bit, are you really being as authentic and vulnerable as you need to be? Because I mean, it's not a comfortable thing. It's not accounting. It's not a clear path. And you're constantly learning and growing and progressing. And part of learning and growing and progressing is, you know, admitting that you are not good at it. And nobody likes not being good at something. You know, the fact that there is room for growth means that there is pain. And so because it's one of those things where it's an unachievable ideal to reach perfection in your work, in your art, there's always going to be discomfort. That's just part of it.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's bad. And I really don't want to be one of those guys that's like, you know, you should talk about that all the time, and you know, and you know, kind of play up this you know, tortured artist persona or whatever. But I do think it's a real thing. Like, you work, like say you spend, you know, 20 to 40 hours on something, and you love it, and you poured your heart and your soul into it, and you put it out there, and either it gets no response or it gets a negative response. If you don't have some sort of emotional reaction to that, you're not human. You know, you're not invested in it. And so I think, you know, I think it's all part of it. And then what you mentioned earlier, in your head as you're creating it as well, I always know that it could be better. Like I'm always very aware of what isn't good about the things that I'm creating. And I'm constantly bumping up against my limitations. That's not fun. I don't enjoy that. But every so often I make something where I hate it a little bit less than other things that I've made, and that's fun, you know, for a moment. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's like fun enough to like forget the nightmare of creating it and just go right back to it. But like that's the thing about like love in general for anything is like you know, it's usually requires a little bit of sacrifice and stuff. But I don't think it's unique to art. Like, I think it's unique to anybody trying to kind of make something good.
Yeah, and I think I also think it's unique to the human experience. I think it's unique to being a real, authentic, genuine person, because look at a relationship, right? If you look at a good marriage or a good friendship, the people that you are the closest with are the people who have the greatest ability to hurt you. Like, I've become more vulnerable with my wife than I have anyone that I can think of. I've trusted her to not use those things to hurt me. But she has that ability because I've decided to be authentic and real with her more so than than other people. She knows way more about me, and I know way more about her than most people do. And I think anything that is good, or anything where you are putting yourself out there, there's a lot to be gained, but it's also a potentially very painful experience. And I mean, I don't think I've, fought or argued with anyone as much as I have with my wife, because like roommates, like I don't care. Like, I had a roommate and it's like, whatever. I don't care what that dude thinks, but like, I care what she thinks. And so something with your art or with your writing or with anything where you're trying to create something of value and you put yourself into it, and it is part of who you are, or what you believe, or what you want to say, or something that you want to create, or whatever. It's a piece of you that you're putting out there. That is going to be a very rewarding experience, but by definition, it is only rewarding because of the risk and 100% possibility of it being hard and difficult and whatever. Like, my football coach used to say, there's going to be 3,000 people in the stands and 50 people on the field. And if this was easy and fun, there would be 3,000 people on the field and 50 people in the stands. And that's the same thing with art. If it was enjoyable 100% of the time, there would be 80% of the population of the world would be doing it. But it's not. It's hard. It's painful because the reward is big. So I don't know. That's a whole rant for. It's a big thing with me. I feel like pain and joy are the same thing. I think they're two sides of the same coin. And the more that you're willing to accept one, the greater the capability that you have to experience the other. And that's why I think creativity and vulnerability and humanity is rewarding.
Yeah, my football coach used to say, "What the hell are you doing on the field?" I'm just kidding. So, Scott, what about you? Do you have a blast making your comics? The process.
Yeah, the comics. Some of it, yes and no. I mean, I'm kind of, and I think this was brought up earlier. It's a lot of times I like the like quick, like, oh, I'm going to make a print and design a print and then it's done and I get satisfaction out of it and it's new, it's different. But since I've been working on the comics so long, it's kind of like more the same. So it's sometimes it's sort of, it's kind of a slog, but I don't know, every once in a while you come up with an idea for a panel or something works out and you're like, oh, that's cool. So comics, it's like, I don't know, I don't not like it, but sometimes I wish this would go faster. I wish this was done, that type of thing. So, I don't know. But it's not that I guess it's not that way with all art. I guess it's more the the long-term projects.
Yeah.
That sometimes I have to, it's just like, I mean, I like right now, like that, and that's why I do individual issues like this, because just thinking that I still have another couple issues after this one to do is just like, I don't want to think about that.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm trying to not think too much about the page count, because it's like, other than just like these little milestones, it's like, like for me, because I had to break mine into 32-page issues in my head, just because I'm like, I don't want to be like thinking about hundreds, I just don't. Yeah. I mean, I like thinking about it at the end.
Oh yeah.
It's not fun even at the halfway point to be like, all right, halfway there, a couple of years in, that's not all that exciting. But the result and then the leveling up that happens is cool. But I think I do think I've been missing out on the little wins that you need kind of along the way, just to like almost like reminders of your skill, because like I said, comics it's like a turtle, and occasionally it's fun to like occasionally just get out there and sprint and be like, yeah, I'm kind of a badass at that, like, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's a weird mixed bag.
And
So
I want to clarify, because there's some comments in the chat. I don't hate doing this. I do enjoy it, but I think it's different than, it's a different enjoyment than fun. I don't know. Like I get, like there's a comment. I totally get joy out of making my comments or making my comics, and I do too. Like I think joy and fun are different things. Anyway, I feel like I just said a bunch of negative stuff, but there's a lot of value and a lot of good to it, and I do enjoy it. I just don't have fun doing it.
Well, and like here's the thing that I don't want to do. I never want to misrepresent the industry we work in. You know, I do remember, luckily, meeting a couple really honest artists, you know, in school, but I also remember meeting guys who were just like, freelance is the best. And then like 10 years later, when I was like knee deep in freelance, you know, finding out what they really felt about freelance and was like, what? Like, wait, what?
Right.
But you were like in front of a classroom being like, this is the coolest thing ever, you know? I want to be careful to not misrepresent, because the thing is, if you're going to do, like, and we've talked about this ad nauseum on here, but it's like, if you're going to do something like comics or animation or like illustration or art, you're getting into it because you probably are going to do it like regardless.
Yeah.
And then if you're making serious art, like you know, you must have felt the pain of making it. And it's not a bad pain. It's just like, it's part of the process. So it's like, the thing I don't want to do is like misrepresent to like maybe somebody who like is like working on comics and is like, why does this suck? Like, you know, like, why does this process suck so bad? And why can't I find that magic place where it doesn't suck? You know, like, especially, you know, if somebody's like 50 pages into something and they're like, why does this still suck doing? Yeah. It's just because like, that's part of the thing. And like, I think there is a comfort in that, because you're not, like, I haven't really met a lot of people who really enjoy it.
Yeah.
And so that, I think that frees people who maybe might be dipping in or feeling like kind of like they're the only person in a room, like staring at a page for 8 hours and seeing this tiny little progress, or screwing it up and having to scrap it and restart it. You know, they're not like, welcome to the club. You're a cartoonist, you know, like that's part of the thing. So I think there's something nice about that, because it's like, otherwise you might feel like maybe you're missing out on some secret window that, you know, the pros have or something. And I just like, I don't think that's the case, you know. I think it'd be really disingenuous. I don't know. I'd be really suspicious of somebody who was like, I love the whole thing, you know?
Yeah.
But well, love's a different word. Maybe I wouldn't be suspicious. But if they were like, I enjoy every moment of it, I don't know. I don't know if I'd trust them.
Yeah.
So like, what? Any other just kind of like hopes for the year? Like kind of things you'd like to achieve? Once again, not trying to do resolutions, just like, you know, endpoints.
I'd just like a bit more of a following. I mean, a lot of what I'm doing, I would just like some more eyeballs on it. I've just met really cool people doing all of this. I'd like to meet more of them. Yeah.
I think that's a good goal across the board, is just like trying to kind of engage more people.
Yeah.
And like trying to get the work out there, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's always, I mean, in addition to making the artwork, you got to have people that actually want the artwork, you know, that are interested in it. That always helps. It's always a good motivator. So
I like what Ox said in the chats. He said, he said, I think the fun I get from comics is knowing that the story I'm telling should exist and no one is telling it like I can.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think that's cool. And he said, I get the tediousness of it too, but I suppose my art skills are still growing quite a bit and still seeing a lot of progress. And see, that's the long-term view, you know, like that's kind of the thing, especially on like a comic project or honestly just the whole art project in general. It's like you're kind of knee deep in it and you may not even see the progress, but then like, you know, 5 years later, you're like, crap, I can draw a hand. I never could draw hands, you know, now I can draw hands. And then it's on to the next thing, you know, where you're like,
now I have to draw a car.
Yeah, exactly. Now I have to draw a car in a weird 3/4 perspective that I've never had to draw before, you know, it's just always a challenge. But yeah, seeing that leveling up, it's like, that's part of it too. But that's cool. I thought Ox put that really well.
Yeah. Also, what he said that I really like is that he's the only one that can tell that. You know, you know, you get what I love about art and comics and creativity and illustration is you all can get the same assignment or have the same idea, but like there's only the way that you tell it, the way that you draw it, the way that you execute it is going to be unique to you. You know, unless you're trying to ape somebody else or whatever. But like if you're being real, like the stuff that he's putting out can only be put out by him, which is cool. That is very fulfilling.
Yeah.
So,
What do you think, guys? Think we covered this, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the goal that goes without saying to wrap this all up is we are still going to aim to try to do this every single week, rotating between my channel and Scott's channel, and then we'll have a rotating third guest chair, and Cory will be back again because he's rad, and it's always awesome. It's always a pleasure to have you on. Thanks to everybody who came in the chats in 2018. This is the first Artcasters chat of 2018, and you guys were a part of it and made it fun. So thanks again to everybody in the chats. So you know where to find me. You know my name. You're on my channel. Scott, where can oh, wait, Scott goes last because he'll tell you about the mailing list. Cory, where can we find your stuff? Where can we check out these projects, these goals that you're working on?
You can check it out at corykerr.com. And I think you link to my YouTube channel on here. Somebody in the chat asked what I'm working on. And if you're interested in what I'm doing for the next 27 days, follow me on YouTube and Instagram and Twitter, and I'll be sharing that. This is going to be one of 30 stickers that I'll be doing, one sticker every day. And I do process videos and I talk about stuff and things like that. So you can find that through the links in any of the videos that I've done. So you can just follow the link in this description, in the description of this video, to my work there.
All right. And then Scott, where can everybody find you?
Yeah, you guys can all find me down here at Circworks. I've got circworks.com. I've got a store up there. I've got all kinds of mad science supplies, and my comics are up there and everything. On YouTube, you can find me, Circworks Art Labs on YouTube. And yeah, I try to post a video, at least one video every week. And hopefully in this new year, I'll have a lot more content. So got some cool stuff I'm hoping to get to. So yeah, that's where you can find that. And yeah, the other thing is that we, like Josh mentioned, this kind of rotates around back and forth between our two channels. So if you want to know exactly where we are, what day and everything, it's usually on Wednesdays, but sometimes we have to push it to another day, just depending on our schedules. But if you want to know when and where we are, the best way to do that is to sign up for our newsletter. We don't spam anyone or anything like that. We just send out usually about 30 minutes ahead of time, just a little notice, letting you know when we're going to go live and everything. So there is a link in the description to that. You guys can check that out. And yeah, I wanted to thank everyone in the chat as well.
Awesome. So for everybody out there, have a good 2018. And like honestly, like, just keep an eye on us, hold us accountable, make us be badass. And we'll all kind of hold each other to that kind of like higher standard, try to make better art, make more comics, and make more books and more stuff. Let's just make cool stuff. All right. I think that'll do it. Yeah. Anybody got like a morning show sign out?
I hate those shows. I never finished them. I don't know how they need like a fart button or something.
I've never stuck around long enough within the morning show to find out how their sign off is, because I usually have to go to work by then. So I don't know.
All right, that's the Cirque signing out. No, all right, guys. We'll see you guys next week.